Getting married actually was my first act of rebellion. I had been just a really good kid, and I was just trying to get through what I needed to get through. And oddly enough, the man that I married, he was really into my best friend at the time. And I just was like, I just need a date for prom. I've got this really great dress, and there has to be somebody just needs to be nice to me and just walk me in, because you can't have a dress that's this great and not have somebody to drive up with. So he was very kind, and I had asked my friend, I said, hey, do you think, because I'd known him through the community, it's a very small pool, very rural area, and he seemed very nice. So, and he was a perfect gentleman, took me to prom, and I saw a protectiveness in him. There was something about, he grew up in a very tumultuous sort of environment as well. So for us, we just kind of came together out of survival instincts, I think, without realizing that. So he taught me to stand up for myself more with my parents. He was also very supportive, though, of that relationship. They didn't particularly like him at all. He was the opposite of their vision for my life. But he was extremely supportive of all of my dreams, all the things that I wanted to do, college, career. And then when it came time for making the decision on military life, he was very supportive of that as well. And going into the military was my second act of rebellion. That was, at that point, I'm like, well, I already married the guy and pissed everybody off. At this point, might as well just go for it. So, we started out just trying to get through, just a couple of broke, young, dumb kids. I was 22 when we got married, and he was the first guy that I'd ever been with. First guy I'd ever slept with, and there was just something about kind of that culture and the church culture that I grew up back then. I was like, oh man, I already did that. I might as well make good on it. And so there was just this internal pressure, and then there was also the resistance of my family. It became, in my mind, and not really to my family's, it isn't what they intended, but in my mind, it was me and him against the world. We're gonna get through, and we're gonna be tough, and we're gonna circle the wagons and look out for one another, and we're gonna break out of this place. So it was about being able to get away. It was an escape. Going into the military was the first time that I did something that was just for me, to let the me that would not have really survived my childhood come out. In the military, that version of Amy wasn't a threat. That version of Amy thrived and did exceptionally well. Had special forces guys on multiple occasions, leadership people on multiple occasions while I was in training, basic training, say we would follow you anywhere because you'll get us home. You'll get us home alive. You're very tactically intelligent. You're better than 70% of the guys out here. So once I went into officer candidate school and that sort of thing, just that continued to be reinforced that, gosh, I'm really good at this. And a whole other version of me came out. My confidence started to flourish, and I started to really find my footing. Unfortunately, my marriage was a casualty of that without either one of us realizing it. My now ex-husband was very much a back in the good old days kind of guy. He was always, looking back at college, and that's when that was the prime of his life, and he was always trying to chase past glory, which is the opposite of who I am, and especially who I'd become. The last thing I ever wanted to do was go back. There was nothing to go back for. All there was pain and things that I had tried to just get through and now run away from. So we started to go very different directions, and then as I went into the military, we didn't plan very well for that. It's just a shotgun decision that we did. And one of the things that kind of came out of that was he developed an addiction to porn. I think there was already some of that there, but I didn't realize how dangerous that was. We were already married, and we didn't do any pre-planning, and had we, I'd have been like, hey, we should probably, make our own little archive for you, and I would have been totally down for that, but we didn't think ahead. So as I'm gone for months and months and months and months at a time, we had a really good relationship of transparency, and he said, babe, I'm really struggling, with this. Like, I'm a man, and I haven't been able to touch you in over 9 months. And what are your thoughts on, porn? I said, well, honestly, I didn't see the danger of it. I'm like, You're not cheating on me, and this is something that is abstract, and you're not, you're just satisfying a need that it's a human need that I wish I could be there, but I can't. I'm half a country away from you. So I didn't discourage it. I didn't feel threatened by it. But when I came home, I didn't realize what I had done until I would show up and I'm naked and ready to go. I'm like, all right, babe, let's do this. And it was not enough. It was, I'd rather sleep, or now I'm not interested, or critiquing my technique, or that sort of thing. I mean, it was very, very hurtful, or even criticizing my body. It was, you need to dress up, and now it's tie me up, tie me down, and now it's, well, maybe we should get you a wig, and well, maybe you should get your boobs done. And in the middle of that, that's extremely damaging. So our sex life went downhill. Also, the military aspect of me, where my confidence had started to come up, he felt, I think, very threatened by that. So, me, I'm wanting to be the good wife and submit and do the good wife thing. And he wanted me to submit to leadership that wasn't sound, that, I suddenly wasn't smart enough to be able to handle the bills. So he took on all the bills. And I came home to my house being foreclosed on. I was just dying slowly. After I got out of the military, I had to just take jobs to keep things afloat. And in doing that, I was killing myself. I was working 70 hours. I was going to school full time. It was crazy. That was the beginning of the end. So one of the things that definitely really stood out to me when I got divorced, or going through my divorce, was having my own tribe and having a healthy tribe. I lost everything when I went through my divorce. I had one friend really that kind of stuck with me, and even some of my friends, even my friends going into it, I lost them through the divorce. So all of our friend groups were so interwoven. We had either one another or friends that we shared mutually. And when we started going through the divorce, he was the only one doing the talking. In that moment, in that extreme feeling of failure and pain, I lost my ability to speak or reach out to anybody. And nobody thought to ask me either. People that had been friends of mine that I would have expected to go, gosh, Amy, we're seeing all these things on Facebook from your husband, and we're getting one side of the narrative. Nobody thought to ask me, are you okay? You don't go from being the sort of person that they knew to all of a sudden the things that he was saying that I was overnight. You don't just decide to become a terrible human. And I wasn't. I was just a very scared person. And I certainly made my share of mistakes, absolutely, and I'll always, always own them. I make no excuses for that. And I think that's the other thing too. You make your mistakes and you don't make excuses, you just move forward. For me, that was very important. But I had no tribe, so here I am in a whole other state, all by myself. I've got nobody. My family relationship was very challenging, and I had built family in the Army that was very important to me, but they're scattered, they're scattered all over the world. So to have immediate people to hug me, to go out to dinner with me, to encourage me, I didn't have that. So if I had that to do all over again, certainly it's a huge thing, and I'm a huge advocate of that now. So I've had to be very deliberate to find friend groups. And the people that kind of came to me initially, I found as well, just because they come to me out of convenience doesn't necessarily make them the right people. It had to be a very deliberate effort, kind of search and rescue effort for Amy's sake, to find the people that were going to be good for me and challenge me. It took several years. My first step into the dating world, my very first step into it post-divorce, actually out into online dating and whatnot, I got myself in a position where I got raped on the first date. And it wasn't a matter of power or could I have struggled out of it. I absolutely could have. I was definitely stronger than he was. It had nothing to do with that. It had everything to do with this. And somehow, in the middle of that, after what felt like just epic failure after epic failure, I had managed to not kill myself after my divorce, and I wanted to. I had thought about it every single day for a year. I knew exactly how I was going to do it, all those things. None of that registered to me that, Houston, we have a problem. I just thought that was part of the process, and in some ways I deserved it. I felt like I deserved it. And so when we got to this moment of me being forced into something that scared the shit out of me, I felt like I deserved it. So that sent me into a whole other tailspin of dating for the next 3 years. I called it a social experiment. In fact, it took me about 3 years to even call what happened rape. I just brushed it off. I'd gone, my whole life through a series of things that were unfair or hard or awful or whatever you want to call it, and just, I'm fine. That's always been my go-to. I'm fine. I'm good. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm strong for a reason, and I am strong for a reason. But over the course of all of this, I punished myself without realizing that that's what I was doing. So the rape was phase one, and then I went into the dating world. I'm not gonna lie, I had a lot of fun, but it was damaging. That stuff really that adds up. Those choices add up. And when you wake up one day and you realize that you've gotten yourself into the lifestyle, as they call it, but I had lost touch with my meter, my ability to stop and check myself and go, is this really what God has for me? Is this where I should be going? I just started making decisions just fast. Everything was going 100 miles an hour. And it felt good. It was either that or get myself addicted to Coke, because I knew Coke would be my thing, for sure. So I just lived my life in that state of trying to outrun everything. And I woke up one day and realized, I'm about this close to being an escort. And I kind of like it in a way. And in a way, it kind of covered some of the damage that I found from my past, that I was told that I wasn't good enough, which more had to do with a porn addiction and that sort of thing. I came to realize, but this was my way of healing it by recutting these wounds open. So in the course of all of this, I met a guy, and his children were the reason that I stayed for as long as I did. I mean, I dated porn star, 2 strippers, you name it. At some point you have to look at your life and go, wonder how we got here. I didn't wake up one day and decide that this is the life that I want. But this one guy had these 2 kids that really spoke to me. And I found myself drawn to them, that I was protective of them. And so over the course of doing all of these things that were just extremely unhealthy, I got fired from a job that while I was kind of in the lifestyle, and for someone like me who's been a leader, who's always been kind of in charge of people, to get fired is a hold up. What's going on? If I keep going down this path, where's this gonna end? Clearly it's not a social experiment anymore. Clearly it has control over me. So I checked myself and realized I need to get this together. For me, I didn't feel like I was worth it, and that was the interesting part. I was not worth it. I couldn't find a reason for myself. This person that I had seen as just a failure, and I was just trying to run from everything. I wasn't worth the change, but these 2 kids were. And so I held on to that. And they have been an anchor for me ever since. They're the best thing, beauty from ashes, as God says. And I heard this story when I was a kid, and it stuck with me my whole life. And it was the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and how they were thrown in the fiery furnace. They wouldn't bow to this king that wanted them to worship other gods, and they're thrown in the fiery furnace. And there are 3 of them, and the king looks and he goes, well, there are 4 people in there. And it's because Jesus was in there with them. And they came out, they weren't burnt, they weren't singed, they didn't smell like smoke. And he was in that with them. And that stuck with me, because the message that I got out of that was, brace yourself, babe, this is gonna suck. And it's not gonna be a life that's gonna be easy for you, but I'm gonna be with you through all of that. So God has pursued me relentlessly and been there with me even when I was making some crazy, terrible decisions. It took several years, but I tried a couple of churches. I finally found one that really fit for me. And then once I went to the church, it was hard for me to really sink my teeth in and go, okay, I need to find actual friends here. Because initially for me, especially the life that I've lived pretty much from the beginning, life that was given to me, and then the life that I subsequently chose as an adult, I didn't think that church people would know what to do with that. But I've kind of navigated that and found my way through to become a life group leader actually for my church. So, I mean, I tell my people, we have real talk. You know, this is nothing really new. I have real talk with the people in my group, but that seems to really hit them center of mass, because these are folks that live real life also. They're just trying to, you know, are just a bunch of imperfect people trying to chase after a perfect God, in fact, is what they say at the church that I go to. And just to be clear, I have absolutely zero use for religion. But my relationship with God, and I'm speaking just my own experience, my own life, my relationship with God has kept me alive, literally. It has been the anchor. It has been the thing that has been consistent, that has held me when I had nothing else, when I was looking at having to live in my car, when I wanted to die every single day, when I didn't know how to even get out of bed to put on my shoes, to get a shower, to brush my teeth first, and then put on my shoes. I mean, that's a whole other sort of thing. So that really anchored me, and through that I've built tribes. I've been very deliberate in my friend group. Not, you know, I think our cutoff game has gotten a little strong. We cut people off without communicating with them. So not that, but also recognizing that not everybody that comes into my life necessarily needs to be there. They don't get to see all of this. They're there for a specific purpose, and understanding what that is and doing my best to breathe life into theirs, and then see if they carry forward with me. So relationships is probably one of the biggest things. Stabilizing my career and not bouncing from career to career to career. So that's one of the things that has really challenged me, is I have identified so much my whole life. Even as a kid, you know, I wanted to become a doctor and go to college to be this thing that would make people proud. You know, I had a tribe of people in my life that were very proud of me. I had other people in my life that should have loved me unconditionally, that were probably the biggest source of fear and stress that kept me in fight or flight my whole life. And because they're blood, you want to make them proud. You know, when it's your own biological father, you're like, something that I do could make him proud. And so I had tethered that to a career, and if I could just get there, then even though he gave me up for adoption when I was, you know, it was between 13 and 16, even though I have no contact with him, there was something in my mind, like, he would be, if he knew me now, he would be proud. To separate that can't be my identity. There has to be more to me than that. And to be able to just hold in a place where my career and my title is not sexy, but to do the things that I am purposed to do, and really sit with that and sit with those feelings and be uncomfortable. And I got into counseling, the big swear word. In my mind, that was a sign of weakness. People went to therapy if they were weak. And I'm not saying that's what I believe today. I'm saying that is how I had felt initially. I'd never been exposed to that growing up, and Lord knows I think that would have done a lot of good for a lot of people in my life, but it was just not something that I was comfortable with. So I finally broke down and realized I need to just talk to somebody. So I went in, you know, all business-like, and also I'm like, okay, so these are the problems, and we need to address, you know, this, and then you need to give me some things to, what can I do about these? And so we've got about 5 sessions, and go. She was extremely gracious with me, and she's like, that's not really how that works, but it was extremely helpful for me to talk to somebody that was able to affirm, you're not crazy and you're doing better than you think you are. And I was like, okay, so now how do I get from feeling like I'm not doing well and the things are legitimately not okay inside of me, how do I address these things? How do I sit with myself? And is that not exactly where we are? I mean, right now it's 2020, we're in the middle of the pandemic, and people are freaking out because all of those things are being challenged in them. So, you know, I feel like everything in my life has led up to this moment. Not that my life has anything to do with the pandemic, but the work that God has been doing in my life and the work that I have been doing. I take responsibility for choices I've made or things that have happened and make no excuse for them. So how do I address these things to become the best version of me every single day, and to find my purpose and to find my footing, that I can be in the middle of this pandemic with everybody else. And I'm not panicked, I'm not unhappy, I am single, and I'm at peace. I don't want a quarantine and chill buddy. That's the last thing I need in my life. If being single was something, if it was a sickness or I was broken, I could fix it in a minute. There's nothing to be fixed. So these are lessons that I have learned over the course of time for me, and I'm hoping just in telling my story, hopefully breaking down some stereotypes and I found this, I've been taking this for a spin and talking to people and how they can just relate to authenticity, where I'm not pretending to be someone that I'm not, and the last thing I'm pretending to be is someone that has it all figured out. In fact, my greatest joy I am finding is the journey is still unfolding. I've not arrived. I'm no expert at anything. I'm an expert at my story. That's it. I'm just sharing my story. But for me to understand that there are more people out there like me makes me feel so less isolated. And isolation is deadly. In my experience, isolation is very deadly. So I'm hoping that people will find even certain parts of my story or certain parts of my experience. Again, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a counselor, I'm none of those things. I'm just another person that is in this with you. That you don't feel so alone, and you can feel empowered, and you can learn to laugh at some things that are really not funny. But that we can go through this together and just find our way without it having to be, well, I'll be happy when, or I can have joy when things are perfect, when I have the right career, when I've got a man, when I've got all these things. That doesn't have to wait. That can happen. In fact, for me, some of the most beautiful, wonderful, meaningful parts of my life have happened in the middle of things that you would not expect joy and peace and hope to come out of that sort of chaos. They can coexist. That we don't have to keep a insta-perfect life to be happy. In fact, that's not really working out so well for us. So how do we do this together? And part of this also, if for no other reason, this is part of my own healing journey. Telling my story is just a way for me to find my voice that I've not had. That person has been suffocated almost my whole life. To find my voice, to be able to grieve things, identify things, and grieve things that are actually true. I've said, I'm good, I'm fine, I got this. I've focused so much on being present for other people and showing up for other people and helping other people that I never sat with myself. And when I did, I panicked initially. It put me into an absolute state of panic. So this has been extremely healing for me, if for no other reason than to grieve and identify the things that are true so that I can be fully at peace and as I've done that, it's been incredible. And when you have that kind of a joy or something that amazing, you gotta share that with the people around you if you care about them. I want people to be able to go to battle, to fiercely go to war for the life that they want, for identity, for purpose, for freedom, for peace, for joy, for all these things that escape us in this Insta world. I am going to unapologetically let people into my life where we can dive deep and we can have these conversations. My hope is that you will find your footing in a world of ever-shifting values and truth, and that we can do this together as you come along my journey with me. I'm Amy Hines, and this is Real Talk.